What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the salary cap situation and how it could be effective for the Detroit Lions as they have moved the league minimum up. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know, DoseOfDion, he put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we have some news about the salary cap for the NFL for 2021. I think a lot of teams are sitting back saying, oh, thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. Because the minimum where the salary cap could fall for 2001 has been bumped from 175 million to 180 million. So that means all these teams around the NFL get a little bit more, and they're super excited. So here's what I've heard is that the NFL is actually borrowing basically money from upcoming seasons. They expect a huge increase. The COVID stuff, you know, slows down and things like that. But they expect big increases in the future to get back to kind of where they were going, and that was having big salary cap numbers every year. And this year just took a huge fall off because of COVID. With that in mind, they're kind of borrowing from upcoming years. I've also heard they're working on TV deals. They're trying to find a way to continue to move this up. So this isn't the set amount. It's not going to be set at 180. Well, it could, but it's not set there right now. This is just the minimum, and somewhere in March, this could be bumped up to when we get our final, you know, where the salary cap is going to sit for 2021. So what does $180 million mean for the Detroit Lions? Save you all the trouble, and instead of kind of breaking down why each thing is which, basically that means we're $6.5 million over the cap. After the Matthew Stafford and the Jared Goff trade go through, because the contract we're taking in with Jared Goff, you know, what we're saving for Matthew Stafford, we'd be $6.5 million over the cap if it's set at $180 million. Now, that's tough. You know, that's not great. You're thinking, oh gosh, we still are $6.5 million over, even with, you know, everything else. Yeah, that's not great. But we're still about middle in the pack compared to the rest of the league, which is kind of crazy. Better financial situation than any other team in the NFC North, including the Vikings, the Bears, Packers. So yeah, I mean, look, we're not sitting in the best spot right now. We hope that goes and continues to go up. But we're not in an awful spot because a lot of the league is struggling with this, and that's why you're seeing a lot of cuts. We know the Texans, they decided to cut J.J. Watt. I think, was it the Falcons? They made some cuts today as well. So yeah, teams are trying to clear some cap space, but the hope is that number keeps going up. See, if it sits at about 186, 187 for 2021, then we're kind of just on like, all right, here we are. You know, we're set at like 0, and, you know, we make some cuts, we save money, things like that. We're not over the cap anymore in that spot. So we're hoping that number continues to go up. Over the cap projected, it's going to be sitting at 193 million, which if that is the case, that would be big time for the Lions because that would put them like $6 million under the cap, which would be great. You know, that'd be a great spot to be. What are some of the things that the Lions can do this offseason? Well, I'm just going to quickly touch on it. There's a lot of names out there, and here's why the salary cap is so important. So if the Lions, let's just say it sits at 180 million. Let's say we're $6 million over the cap, and it sits right at the minimum, just to make it simple. Well, the Lions would be $6.5 million over the cap, and they have a couple of options when it comes to cuts. Some of the major players that I can see getting cut include Desmond Trufant, who if he's cut could save you $6 million. It includes Justin Coleman. Now, Justin Coleman, if he's cut, normally he's going to save you $4.9 million. But if it's a June 1st cut, he saves you $9 million because you basically spread out that dead cap over time. So it saves you more this season. And if you need more money this season, you're expecting the salary cap go up, it could make sense to make cuts like that. You can only make 2 of those cuts from what I understand. So it brings me to Jesse James, kind of a similar situation here. You cut him normally, you save $2.3 million. If you do the June 1st cut, I believe it's about $5 million. These are according to over the cap. So it's about $5 million then. Nick Williams, you cut Nick, you'd save about $4.6 million. You cut Danny Shelton, you save about $4 million. You cut Chase Daniel, $2.3 million. You cut Christian Jones, $2.5 million, and you add all that together. Let's say Lions do the June 1st cuts and they make all those cuts, they'd have $28.8 million saved through those cuts. There's also a couple of guys that they could look to trade. These 2 players, if you release them, wouldn't save you any money. You could actually lose money releasing Big V. So one thing you could do is look to trade Big V. If you trade him away, you'd save $5.6 million. I mean, obviously, assuming you're not bringing back in another contract, you save $5.6 million. You can't cut Big V and save money. It just won't happen. I don't think they will, but if you aren't sold on him, if you want to go a different route, you know, you could try to trade him away. Maybe someone will take it. I don't know if they will. It's a pretty big contract, so they would have to be willing to do it. I'm not saying you could do this, but you could, you know, look at your options. I don't think he's going anywhere. It was a really rough year for Big V in many ways, where a lot of the team, I mean, okay, look, Big V literally played more snaps in 2019 than he did in 2020. Just think about that, right? And he was the starter for us. He was inconsistently on the field. There was 2 games at least where I know he wouldn't at halftime, but he didn't come out the second half because of a foot injury. He'll grade out better than Jonah Jackson did last season. I think one of the best things the Lions can do with Big V is find a home and keep him there, because I think, okay, yeah, injuries, he has the ability to move around. He graded out extremely well in 2019 with Philadelphia. He played well with Philly. He played a lot of left tackle. I think for the Lions, okay, if he's going to be right tackle, be right tackle. If you're going to be a guard, be a guard. But, you know, they kept moving him in and out. He couldn't stay healthy. It wouldn't shock me if next season, I mean, yeah, they could have looked at depth, and I think it's always good to add depth and competition. And, you know, you could see what Logan Stenberg turns into. Maybe Logan takes a starting guard job, and now you have Big V and Terrell Crosby compete for the tackle position. That would be a great position to be in. But if Logan can't take that job, I wouldn't be shocked if Big V starts that guard with Jonah Jackson, and you move Terrell Crosby and just have him be tackle. Okay, you just say, hey, Big V, look, you're a guard. Okay, you're a better run blocker than a pass blocker. We've seen that throughout your entire career. You be a guard, because he had a really slow start to the season, but I felt like he started to pick it up. And we're just going to have you be that. And then Crosby, you'll be our tackle. You're a better pass protector. You're going to protect our quarterback. You're going to be the right tackle. That's obviously dependent on what turns in with Logan Stenberg. But assuming Logan Stenberg can't take over that role, I wouldn't be shocked if that's what Lions did, because I think they just need a place to play this spot, get good at it. Every week was different with this offensive line. It was a disaster. And COVID and the injuries did not help. Offensive line situation is just weird to me. I mean, it's just a very weird spot the Lions have themselves in, because I think Anthony Lynn said himself that it's like the deepest position. It does have great depth, and I wouldn't cut a player, lose money, and get rid of depth. Like, I think the offensive line needs depth. We see all the time guys getting injured because it's such a physical place to play. But when you look at the line from left to right, you have Decker, right? You know, he's set in stone. The guard position's up for grabs. Let's say left guard, let's just say Jonah Jackson, center for right now. The right side's confusing because right guard, say they push Big V to right guard and they make Terrell Crosby right tackle. Well, that means Logan Stenberg is once again your backup, and you still have Joe Dahl. Now, Joe Dahl may have made this possible by showing us last season that he could play backup center. I think he had one bad snap, but since he could play backup center, he could stay as a backup as your center on the roster. He's not taking that much of a cap hit whatsoever. So you might as well keep him, keep the depth. I don't think it's a problem that the Lions have the depth. They're just going to be able to compete. This is a good problem to have, I think, in my opinion. You know, Logan going at it with Joe Dahl for a spot. Crosby going at it with Big V for a spot, okay? And they might be just both fighting for right tackle, because if Logan can take the guard spot, I want, you know, Logan playing that spot. But then you have to have Big V and Terrell Crosby going at it, which would mean that he's no longer the guard, but he has the versatility to go to guard. Joe Dahl can play the inside offensive line positions. I think the depth is a good thing to have, so I wouldn't cut a guy if I'm not saving money. If I save money by cutting him, I can see doing it, but I'm not. Same thing applies to if Big V is better at guard than Logan Stenberg, I'm starting Big V. I'm not thinking because this guy was drafted that I have to start him at some point. Terrell Crosby's been a backup for a while since Lions drafted him. You know, look, whoever wins the role wins the role. So I think for the Lions, you just go with whoever, you just let him compete. You let's see who wins the role, who's the best fit, right guard, right tackle. And if it's Big V right guard, right tackle Crosby, and Logan's the backup, then that's what it is. You know, that's what you roll with. I think you just roll with the best 5, and, you know, you just let him compete and fight it out for a spot. I don't think anybody should earn a role, whether that's Big V or Logan, just because either they're getting paid too much or because they were young and they got a draft pick. I don't care about that. I'm playing the best 5 because, look, these guys didn't bring him in anyways. So I'm not saving money by getting rid of Big V unless I can trade him. So I'm just going to see who wins the spot, and we're going to start him whatever's the best. That's just simple. It's just great competition with good depth because you have guys that are versatile as well. Nor do I think Jamie Collins is going anywhere, but he's also another option. You can't really cut him. You wouldn't save nearly anything. But if you do look to trade him, you could save $7 million if someone's willing to take on that contract. 2 guys I don't think will be traded. I think they're going to be on the roster next season, but there are 2 options if Lions want to try to figure out how to do it. You give up, you know, certain assets just to get rid of the contract, I guess, if you're just simply looking to save money. I could see Jamie possibly, you know, be someone the Lions try to potentially trade because of his age, and he may not fit the schemes that they're looking to run, but I think both of them are going to end up being on the roster next season. That moves you to who we have upcoming in free agency. That includes Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, Romeo Okwara, Danny Amendola. Like, we have some pretty big names in there, Jamal Agnew, but the 2 biggest, of course, are Kenny Galladay and Romeo Okwara. And people are trying to figure out, you know, who should we bring back? Should we try to bring both back? Well, Kenny Galladay is expected, if it's a tag, to get $16 million just this season because it's a franchise tag. If you keep him on that tag throughout the year, you're spending $16 million on one player. Now, all those cuts, you save $28.8. That's a lot of your cap going to Kenny Galladay. Then you look at a guy like Romeo. I've seen him projected anywhere from $7 to $10 million for his next extension per year. Now, you could set these contracts up where you put a little bit more back on the contract, you know, hoping that the upcoming, you know, salary caps go up, and then you'll have more money those off seasons, like next year and the year after that. So you could do that if you resign them. If you resign a guy like Galladay, you know, probably for the first year, you're still probably going to give him around 15 to 16 million, but you could still put more on the back end. However, you know, there's going to be teams out there probably willing to offer like 20 plus. I mean, I think there might be. We'll see though. I mean, I know the Giants are probably going to be super interested. Up there right now with a lot of salary cap include the Jets, the Indianapolis Colts. Those 2 teams have a a lot of cap. Everybody is kind of a struggle right now. So it's going to make it difficult. And maybe upcoming free agents may find a harder time getting really good deals because every team's kind of in this situation right now. And, you know, that's why we talk about Golladay and Romeo so much. But then you also have to keep in mind you have to save money for the draft. Now, I've done a mock draft where I made a couple of trades. So obviously I had to sign more contracts, but it cost about $9 million just for that draft. So you're going to have I would say at least $8 million heading into the draft. At least. We know Bob Clinton likes to save money left over. So let's say you saved $8 million for the draft. You saved 28.8 with all your cuts. You're $6.5 million over cap. Just over $22 million in cap space. Plus, then you have the draft, which you take about 8 away. So now you're looking at about $14 million in cap space heading into free agency, about $14 million to spend, and you might want to save a little bit just for a rainy day. So you can see kind of the issue is we got to hope this number just keeps going up and up and up. The good thing is that the minimum keeps going up. Obviously, it can't get lower than that. So the worst case situation is we're $6.5 million over, assuming the Lions don't restructure Jared Goff. Again, that's one of the biggest things in this. If the Lions restructure Goff, they can save about $20 million a season, but it does put guaranteed money throughout his contract, which would mean there is no really potential out after 2022. It means you believe in this guy for your future. That's basically what it means. If you don't restructure contract, you're taking on more money, but you have it out. So that's more of a being prepared for the future. If you believe in him wholeheartedly, he's going to be here for 4+ years, then you can move around that contract, you can restructure it, and you can give him more of a signing bonus throughout his career. That would mean save a lot more money now, and it could help you for this offseason, but again, you're locked into Jared Goff. So expect some backloaded deals in free agency, and this could also incentivize potentially looking to trade back even more in the draft, because adding more draft picks could be very, very crucial to fill out your roster, because if you're looking for core pieces, you could really focus on the draft this year, because it can be very difficult to grab core pieces in free agency if you don't have a lot of money. Now, look, like I said, every free agent in the league, they could be, looking at less pay this offseason, and you could always put more money to the backside of those contracts. That's true. But there are teams that have a lot of money still in cap space. The good thing is that we're in a better spot than all the other NFC North teams. So that's great. I love it. And hopefully some players come here for cheaper, things like that. But again, it could mean the Lions maybe want to trade back in the draft because they only have 6 picks. I don't know where that would be, but they could because they need to fill that roster. They could be looking for core pieces in the draft. We know Brad Holmes is already a draft guy anyways. That's all he does. That's all he did was draft. So wouldn't it shock me if you wanted to try to acquire more draft picks, knowing that they're not going to have the most money probably to spend in free agency. And if we can get it to like 185, 186, I think we're going to be sitting in a pretty good position. You could find around, $18, $20 million to spend in free agency, put towards contracts this year. I think that wouldn't be a bad spot to be in. Kenny Golladay, however, is going to be the biggest question. Are they willing to put that much money towards a receiver in free agency? That's the biggest question to me. We've talked about before they could tag him to try to see how he fits in the offense and then see if they can figure out a long-term deal down the road because, they haven't got to see him in this offense. And once you sign him to that giant deal where you give him $18 million a season, you sign him to the deal. I don't know what the other interest is, but I know there's talk and there's rumors that the Giants will be willing to offer $20 million. And, this scares me because the Colts aren't being talked about, but they got a lot of money and they need a receiver. They just traded for Carson Wentz. By the way, I like that move for the Colts. I think they did a really good job. They didn't have to give up that much to get him in return. And I know there's the factors of how those picks could be raised, but as of now, it's a 2nd and 3rd round pick they gave up. I think that's really good to keep pick number 21 and, be able to focus on tackle, receiver, or cornerback. But that could mean maybe they show interest in Kenny Golladay. And if they're going, they want to go get the top receiver, they could look to sign a monster contract to a guy like Golladay. So Golladay will be the biggest question to me. I think Romeo, from what I saw, if you can get around $7 million a year, 7, 8, I think that's a good signing. I'd bring him back. And then obviously, you use the rest to fill out some spots. Maybe you go after one more key or core piece you think in free agency. Maybe that's a linebacker. Maybe that's a safety with ties. Maybe that's a John Johnson. Maybe it's a Marcus Williams. Maybe that's a linebacker that we've talked about. Maybe it's a Jayon Brown or a Matt Milano. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's a Melvin Ingram. Bring back Golladay. It's going to be very difficult to bring back Romeo and Kenny Golladay. We understand that. So that's why we hope that number keeps going up and up and up and up. And it would be great if it hit like 190. I would love that. But hopefully like 185, 186 what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for around that number. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you, Prop, for watching. Who do you see getting cut? And I'm out.